And so now I went, okay, now I want to do this VSL. Well, the VSL is talking about 3 forces that are hitting our industry. Well, see, my goal is not to have it scripted.
Yeah.
Like that's my whole goal. But this one was a precise reason that I needed to have the script. Like those 3 forces, it was if I went on each 3 forces on my own, like I said, it'd be 3 times as long. So I'm like, okay, I need to read this. So then what we did is I videotaped myself for the 2 first paragraphs. In the last 3rd paragraph, I actually recorded myself. And then the middle, I like intentionally threw on a sweatshirt or something so that it was just the audio, me trying to do 5 minutes of reading and not looking good and not messing up. And I kept messing up and like, okay, take 2. And I had some things that I kept, you know, some bad ones, and I'm watching them, and my wife like looks over my shoulder and she starts laughing because I'm like, okay, take 247.7. And I'm like, pause. Okay, so how you doing?
Yeah.
And she's like, is that real? And I'm like, well, it sure as heck felt like it.
Yeah.
You know?
Welcome to the Slightly Serious Sign Podcast, brought to you by Wensco Sign Supply, the #1 podcast in the sign and graphics industry for news, events, new products, and customer success stories. If you want to know what's going on or you want to grow your sign shop, you're in the right place. Here is one, some, or all of your hosts, Mike, Tyler, and Domingo. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Slightly Serious Sign Podcast. My name is Tyler. I am the only host joining us again. The previous episode, I made a joke that one guy's in China and one guy's in Cabo. Apparently, the other guy's back because he just jumped in here right before as we were about to start. So, but still, just me here on the podcast. I won't give you a number because originally we planned to do 1 episode, and we got through half the questions, and we were 45 minutes in. So we're like, let's cut it. We'll do a 2nd episode. No idea where it falls in the timeline. So we'll let Rick splice it in. So hello, this is episode. It wasn't me. That was AI. I don't know what it sounded like. Hopefully it was good. Rick will do some work there. So, Shawn, thanks for coming on again.
Yes,
I know nice of you to make it the trip again to come on the podcast.
Yeah.
You know,
it was a 5-minute down the hallway, 5-minute back here.
Yeah, not too bad. So
took a while.
So if you didn't listen to your previous episode, that was episode 109. I had to scroll up to find it. Maybe this is 110, maybe this is 112, maybe this is 120. I don't know where it's going to land on here, but
it all depends on what I say, right?
True. Yeah. If it's really good, out immediately. If it's bad, you know, we're just going to keep scooting it out. You know,
it's at the end of the year, Shawn. Really? Yeah. It's going to post someday.
Christmas. You know, like nobody will listen to that one anyways. It'd be fine. Just put it in there. No. So we talked about growth in the last episode. We had 2 topics we wanted to cover. We only covered the first one, so we're like, all right, let's get into the second one. So, in there you talk about grew your sign shop, got approached by someone to sell it, and ended up selling the business and kind of exiting. I think there's a lot of shops that don't even think that far ahead in terms of they don't know what the plan is to be done. They don't know who it's going to go to, if they're going to sell the business, if they're just going to, like I made a joke, like I feel like a lot of times it's just like, well, I worked on Friday, I locked the door and I just never came back. Yep. And that's how a lot of these feel like they died. But I think if you think about it ahead of time and you plan and prepare, I think there's a decent chance where if you have worked on this business for as long as some of these people have, which is, 40, 50 years for some of them, I think there's a decent chance at least of retirement if you've done a good job with your business. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today. So, do you just want to give a rundown on, at least from the perspective of what did it look like to go through the process and to exit the business, and what was that like for you?
Oh gosh. Yeah, we talk about this. So I added brokering to my arsenal this year, and we talk about that. Like the process is not, hey, I'm going to decide to sell my business today, 30 days, I'm done, I'm out the door. Our process we put it on the market blindly. So it was just, here's a sign company in this area. And we had 7 or 8 inquiries within the first 2 weeks. We had 4 or 5 LOIs within the first 90 days, or maybe even 60 days, 30 to 60 days. So an LOI is a letter of intent. So here's what we're offering you. It's not legally binding per se, but it at least tells you here's the direction we're going. So that was awesome. Like we're like, oh, wow, this is cool. Well, then comes the real work. So once you say, okay, as an owner, you go, okay, this one's out, this one's out, this one's out. Oh, this one's real. Okay, we'll go that direction. Well, that became a 10-month process. So if you don't have the heart to deal with it for 10 months, and during that 10 months, a lot of people say like, oh, well, hey, I'm done. I'm selling, I'm done. So I can just skate. I can just relax during that 10-month period. No, you need to keep running your business. And this is what we did. We kept running our business as if we weren't selling.
Yeah.
So, but the key is the tenacity through that period of time. So it was like, okay, here, we need all your financials. We need all your information. Once we say, okay, we're accepting your LOI. Well, now comes the due diligence part. The due diligence can be 60, 90, 180 days. So during that period, it's report. And so the purchaser, buyer, is working with the bank, typically, unless they're a PE or a VC, which is private equity or venture capital. But if they're working with a bank, and typically it's going to be an SBA loan, well, the SBA is stricter because the SBA really, when you get an SBA loan, just to kind of give that little scenario, it is just a guarantee to the bank. So you or I can go buy a business, and instead of putting 20% down, because that's the bank's regulation, we can put 10% or 5% down, and the SBA backs or guarantees the bank that they'll take care of it if someone defaults. So they'll make the bank whole. So, but boy, when you get into SBA, I mean, it was every few weeks, every month. Hey, we need this report. Hey, we need another report. Hey, we need another batch of reports. And I remember telling my wife, really? Another batch of reports? And luckily I had a business manager. So I would just be like, hey, how soon I need blah, 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 blah. And she'd rattle off, the 5 reports and send them off to whoever I told her to send them off to. So that was fantastic. But if you're an owner doing that, you've got to withstand that period of time, whatever it is. It could be 6 months. That's kind of a quick turn, to even 18 months. So you've got to be able to keep pushing forward with your business, running your business, staying profitable, because if that goes down, like let's say, hey, I decided to sell today. I'm just going to relax. I'm going to take it easy. I've got it sold. You don't have it sold until you have a check and money in your bank.
Yeah.
So if you drop 10% over that 6 to 12 month, 18 month period, well, they can come back at any point in time and say, hey, we need to renegotiate. You dropped 10%. So if you're doing $1.5 million, you dropped $150,000. We need to know what's going on, why, and then we're probably going to renegotiate again.
Yeah.
And you're in this mindset like, okay, I'm going to get this, X amount of dollars, and now this X amount of dollars might change. So that's the biggest hurdle that I see is like, for me, I just went, okay, cool. We're just running as if we're not, selling. And if we do, fantastic. If we don't, we move on just like nothing ever happened. But a lot of owners they're done. And that can kill a deal. I mean, it can literally not even just renegotiate. It can kill the deal. So now you're all excited and you're like, yeah, I'm going to retire. I'm going to move on to the next phase of life, whatever that is. And then 6 months, 9 months into it, you skated along and your business fell off a little bit. And they're just like, hey, we're out. See ya. And they can do that. And they can typically legally do that without any recourse. So that's, yeah.
Yeah. So for people that are looking to go through that process, how early do you think people need to be planning? And this isn't just to put it up for sale, but I mean physically preparing the business to be something that people would be interested in buying.
Yeah. Typically, I would say, and we somewhat did this, but we didn't do it as well as I teach, is the fact that just set up your business along the growth side to be ready for that opportunity. Because, we talked about, I wasn't ready to sell. We just happened to be the first acquisition of a roll-up. Well, that meant we got a bigger multiplier than we really deserved. We just got lucky. Let's put it that way. I mean, that's real. We got lucky. If we would have been number 3, 4, or 5, we probably wouldn't have sold because we wouldn't have had the offer that we did.
Yeah.
So if you build during your whatever phase you're at, as in growth, but with the growth you're building as in, you might come along, Tyler comes along and says, hey, I'm going to write you a stupid check because you've got X, Y, and Z in place. You've got your finances in order. You're financially, like you as an owner are not dependent on, like everything's not revolving around you. You're not the spoke of the hub, You've got people in place. You've got processes in place. You've got a great culture. So I can come park my money in your organization instead of in the stock market. And then I can try and grow that vertically or add something to it or, specialize it in some way because I know your people and your capabilities. And then I can either enjoy the profits, or down the road I can sell it, and let's say I buy it for $1 million, I can turn it for $2 million. Okay. Well, now my return was better than the stock market. And that's some of the new owners, and some of the new owners want to grow in vertical growth. So you might be in an area that Joe doesn't have what you're doing, but he wants to add it. He's large enough to buy you, and it's much easier to buy you with a clientele, with a profit coming in, with a cash flow, and with a business than it is to go start that division from scratch. So
yeah, we're seeing a lot of that with some of the bigger sign shops now too, whether that is private equity or venture capital coming in and buying them and then buying up the other shops around them, or it's these bigger shops being like, okay, well, I kind of own this market. I would like to kind of expand into this market that's adjacent to me, but that means I have to beat this guy. But if I just buy him, I don't have to beat him. I can just keep his clients and then grow from there.
Exactly.
And I think there's a lot of opportunity there, whether you want to be the one doing the buying or you want to be the one in a position to sell to somebody.
Yep.
What do you think? You brought it up briefly in terms of the owner not being the key indicator on whether the business grows or dies. I'd like to go into that a little further in terms of what does that look like, but what are the other reasons that the sale may, when they look at the numbers, be like, oh no, this is not going to work for us.
So what do you mean again?
Like, so when, so you said when the owner is kind of owns the whole business, right? Everything kind of revolves around them, right? When someone goes to buy it and they look at it and they be like, well, like once you leave, there's nothing here, right? Like you are the business, right? Yep. So that's a big one, right? What are some of the other reasons that when someone looks at it, they might be like, if you don't set up this, and this, like this is not going to work.
Well, so basically, are there processes in place? Because if you don't have processes, there's probably rework, which is lost profit. Is there a culture? Are we merging the two together? Or are we keeping them separate? So if it's a larger acquisition, like a larger company acquiring a smaller company for whatever reason, adding a service, doing whatever, just adding employees, eliminating competition, that's a little different scenario because they can merge the two, but then they need to know, okay, what kind of culture is in the business we're acquiring versus our culture. So there's a lot of factors there. Are they keeping their books in order? If it's a new person, what skill set does a new person bring? Are they just a cash heavy investor and they want to park their money, like I said, to be able to make a better return than in some other investment they can make? Or are they actively going to be in some way active? Okay, well, then that's two different scenarios. So that if they're going to be active, well, what position are they going to fill? And if the owner, okay, I gave a scenario when we were off camera of, talk to someone, they're in the wholesale side of it, and, spouse one is in the business, they're 5 roles, five different hats they're wearing, and spouse 2 ends up with cancer and they're holding 2 roles. Okay, well, now that spouse has cancer, we're done. We're for sale. Okay, well, what is for sale? If I'm looking to buy you, what is for sale? I have to fill 5 hats on one side. I have to fill 2 hats on the other side. So I have 7 hats I need to fill. Am I going to come in and wear 7 hats? Heck no. I don't care what position I am. Heck no.
Yeah.
And even when I was in business, I'm like, how many hats can I keep putting on top? I need to be taking them off, not adding them. And so as an investor, you're really going to look at that and go, I want to wear 7 hats? Or do you want to come in and there's a person that's filled all those positions, whether it's 1 person, 2 persons, 3 persons, whatever it is. So the more you can get structured, the better it is. Structured from a financial standpoint, so you have your finances in order. Structured from a team personnel, you have all the areas covered that you really need. So where this gets hard is like that 2 to 5 person company. You're growing and you've got momentum, because we went from like 2 to 10. And at 10, we still didn't have enough people. I wasn't structured to sell. We just happened to get lucky. So at 10 people, we really should have been about 12. If I really was structured to sell and I wasn't dependent, I was still a spoke. I was still the hub. I was doing sales, I was doing marketing, I was doing management at times because we fluctuated between managers from time to time. So I'm still active in it. So they didn't buy a business per se. They bought a business with an owner that's still active. And when they let me go, they didn't have, we parted ways and they didn't have a person to fill my spot. So now they're stuck with figuring out what all do we need to fill, Like, what areas did he actually do? Who do we have on staff that can cover here or there? And who do we have to hire? And then how do we train them? You know, and so that's what getting structured is. And really, it's going to be at 2 to 5 people. It's really hard. You know, we were there. It's like, you're still active. You're trying not to be active. You try and work on the business. You can't work on the business. But going back to our growth talk, it's like, what do you do with the 1,000 minutes? You know, if you're ADD, ADHD, and, you know, 7 other acronyms that don't haven't been talked about, you know, you suck at your 1,000 minutes. Well, then it's always, I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. Yeah. But really structuring on how do you make that time to get to that point where you're sellable. Yeah. You know, but now I want to say that loosely, because 2 to 5 person companies still have value. So a lot of these people that are closing the doors, and, you know, I see it, this industry and other industries, and this is just the industry I love, but yeah, we're done. Like, hey, we're done. We're only 2 people. We're only doing $250,000 a year, $200,000 a year. There's no value to it. Shut the doors, sell the equipment for pennies on the dollar, get stuck with a few pieces you got to figure out how to get rid of. There is still some value to that before you get to that point. So if you think 3 to 5 years ahead, even in that scenario, 2-person company, $200,000, even if you think 12, 18 months ahead, we can structure a package that's worth something to someone, and you don't close the doors with 0, you know, and that's just, that kills me. I mean, to see that happen kills me. You put in, like you said, 20, 30, 40 years, and then just, okay, I'm done, close the doors. And I'm like, no. There's value somewhere to someone. It's just, it's going to take some effort, and it's going to take some time, but it can be done, you know? Yeah.
I think that's interesting. Just, like we've seen it, like when we're sending out emails, right? Sometimes you're trying to go through the auto responses, right? And be like, oh, this email is no longer active, right? Delete. But sometimes you get them that are like, hey, just heads up, we've closed the door for, you know, X, Y, or Z. And it's like, man, you can go back, right? And you can see, like, we were working on a project 6 months ago, right? Like, with no indication that they're ready to close the doors. So you're going through like, okay, what made you go like 6 months ago? We have this project that we're working on. We're doing this thing. And then here we are now, and you're closing your doors, and you're thinking, man, like, we deal with customers all the time, right? Where they're like, hey, if you know anyone selling in blank city, we're looking to move over there. So just let us know. And it's like, there's people out there for that type of work, right? Like, your competitors, I mean, would be the first ones, probably the ones that are right next to you, be like, hey, I have this clientele list. Is that of value to you? Right. But I don't even think people are asking those questions, right? They're just going, oh, I guess we're done today, and locking the door and walking out. So,
and the key is, like, for us as business coaches, okay, so you've got a different realm. You've got business coaches that haven't been in business, so they're just kind of going off of a script or whatever they've learned. And then you've got guys like me, gals like me that have been in business. And so I'm looking at it going, okay, well, if we can come alongside you, there is some value. We just need to package it, you know? So, like, for me, when I was in business, if I knew Joe was going to go out of business, I would have hit him up and said, at least, you know, now I can acquire your clients. Otherwise, your clients are going wherever. Yeah. You know, so what is your clientele? Like, and typically, like, in my area, I would have known Joe has this, Jim has this, Susie has these, and I don't really fit in Joe's clientele, but Joe's clientele will fit really good with Jim. So now, as a broker and a coach currently, I would try and pair those two together. Say, hey, you know, Joe or Jim, whoever's going out, like, hey, he's got a book of business that's really pretty good. His equipment, it's okay, but it's taken care of. It might be older, but still taken care of, still works. So that would be an asset to you. So what kind of value would that bring to you? Yeah. Now, at least the other party gets some retirement funds versus otherwise it's closing the doors, and he might get $5 or $10 for his equipment if he's lucky, and he's still got to find someone to buy it. Yep. And he's got to have a space to put it. So I'm like pairing the two together. So that was one of the things I wanted to touch on. As a broker, it excites me because I love our industry. And so I want to set up, and I'm trying to figure out how to do this currently, but a portal where I know the bigger companies that want to grow vertically through acquisition, and then the smaller companies that, as they get closer to wanting to retire, I can pair the two together in our industry. So now we're not like, sign shop got sold to Joe Schmo off the street who has no clue. We had one in Lafayette. We had one that we sold our company in July of 21. And I didn't even know it. One of our main competitors sold like a couple months later. They closed their doors in, I think it was the fall of last year. And they paid in the $1 million range. And they just closed their doors. And I'm like, you're screwed for how many years? Because, it was SBA backed. So you're screwed. I mean, you're talking with the government. So now whatever they do to come back and make that whole, instead of going, okay, there is still some value. Can we go to the bank and can we negotiate? And can you take this and can you come up with some money from family, friends to offset it? And can we end up maybe with a zero balance so everyone's happy? Yeah, we're going to take less on the back end at the bank. Yes, we're going to take less than what you paid on the owner's side, but at least you're not upside down with whatever debt's left.
Yeah, that's true too.
And so it's like, okay, how do we pair these two together? And no one really specializes in the print, graphics, and sign side of things, as a broker. So I'm excited to kind of pair those together and get to know the people and pair them together so that we don't have doors closed and people losing out on, 30, 40 years of effort.
Yeah, for sure. So if someone's looking, say they're getting up there and they're thinking, I'd really love to be done with this at some point in my life. So what are the habits and systems you think they need to be putting in place, so that as they get closer to the point of being ready to sell, the business is worth the money that they're going to want to get out of it?
So it's putting together financials. You need strong financials for at least 3 years. So if you're thinking, hey, and I'm 60 and I want to retire 60 something. Okay. Well, then now's the time to start making sure if you don't do your financials almost daily, I would say, then how do we get structured? How do we move into that? And it's not going to be a tomorrow thing. If you don't do them every day now, you're not going to go from doing it once a year. Here's my accountant. Here's my box of receipts, and to, hey, I'm doing it daily. It's going to be an incremental thing, but getting the financials in order. And then it also goes back to, this is really cool. If you think about it this way, we take write-offs as owners, to save taxes, and we can legally do that to a degree. Well, let's say if I'm in the 25% tax bracket, and I'm writing off $20,000. And we're looking, when we go to sell business, we're looking at a multiplier typically based on a bunch of criteria. So let's say that multiplier is 3x. So if I get my business to this status, then I can get 3x what I'm making. Well, I want to write off $20,000 to save on taxes, and I'm in the 25% bracket. So I'm going to write off $20,000 to save $5,000. Well, once we get into this period of thinking of selling, that $20,000 is not worth $20,000, and that $5,000 savings is not worth $5,000 savings. That $20,000 at 3x is $60,000. So you could save over a 3-year period. If you're tracking back 3 years for financials, you could save $15,000 over that 3-year period by writing off $20,000, $20,000, $20,000. But if you're on a 3 times multiplier, you save $15,000 to lose $60,000. Because there are things as add backs, and then there's some things you can't track to add back. So out of that $20,000, if you can track $2,000 add back, but you can't track 18, you still lose 18 times 3, $54,000 on a sales price.
Yeah.
So there's things like that like going into the factor, it really helps to have someone that understands it to come alongside you and say, how do we transition to get you the maximum dollars at the end?
Yeah. So really you're saying is most people now are optimizing for tax season. Really, that's what most people are doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we see it here all the time, right? November, December comes around. People are like, hey, I got to spend 20, I got to spend 30, 40, 50 grand, right? Like I got to spend the money. What you're saying is if you're looking to sell, optimizing for tax return is actually the opposite kind of what you want to do. So what you actually want to do is show higher profit when for taxes, typically we're trying to say like, hey, government, I actually only made $12 last year when it's all said and done. That's interesting. I wouldn't have even made that jump. So that would be the benefit of at least getting with somebody ahead of time to be like, look, we're trying to sell. What do I need to do in the leading up years? And the answer is like, you're going to have a big tax bill, but it'll pay off in the end, right, if you're patient enough.
Well, and it even goes farther. I get really excited about this stuff. So, one thing I learned, I was diving into some things, Social Security. So if we go to sell and we're 62 to whatever, and depending on where you're going to take your Social Security starting at, that is all based on what we, what do you call that? Where we tell the government, where we report our income. So it's based on an X amount of period and your highest income. Well, if you're trying to be tax advantage and you're writing everything off, but then you go to Social Security and you're like, okay, I sold, or I closed the doors, sold my assets for nothing, but I'm going to rely on Social Security. But you did all these write-offs, so it shows that you made minimal income. You could screw yourself on the back end for Social Security. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's a really cool thing. Like guys like me geek out and get excited. But if we look at it early enough, we can get those 3 years of taxes and 3 years of financials in order for Social Security on the back end, for maximum exit dollars. And yeah, that period of time, you might pay more taxes than you're accustomed to. But then there's also a strategy of what do you do with the money at the time of sale? So do we pull it out over 3 years over some kind of term? And you do like a self finance? Do you do all at once and pay that hit? Like how do you, it's a whole strategy, but that takes more than just, I'm ready to retire. I'm done in a month. I'm closing doors. You can't do that. It's going to be a 3 to 5 year plan. So once you hit 55, 60, if you feel like I'm tired, I'm getting close to done, I want to be finished by this period of time, that's when you start engaging someone to really get this plan in order. And so, and really it's setting up just everything, just along the growth side. It's almost hand in hand. Like you can set up the growth and for exit simultaneously, but there's more structure end of it and more forethought. And then the back end. Now here's something I learned the hard way. So everyone thinks, going to sell, going to retire, going to go play golf, going to go sit on the beach. That gets old really fast, really fast. So we sold and we agreed to stay on. So we stayed on for 15 months. So literally we closed on Friday. We were back at work on Wednesday for the new owner. That's okay. That's fine. We agreed to it. We did it. But once we got to that 15-month period and we parted ways, then my wife decided, well, I've always wanted to drive a school bus. So I'm going to go drive a school bus. So we had 6 months together. I think she got kind of tired of me. Yeah. She went and drove her school bus and she's like, hey, we've got a place in North Carolina. We live in Indiana. And she's like, oh, just go down and enjoy hiking. I hate it anyway. So go down and enjoy hiking, take a week or two, come back. Just let me know when you're coming back and, we'll hang out for a couple of weeks and go do it again. I'm like, okay, that was cool for like 3 months. I'm like, yeah, I'm hiking. I'm getting miles in. I'm having fun. And I start going like, okay, this is supposed to be her and I. Yeah. And also I wasn't me. I just, for some reason, I wasn't me. I couldn't tell what. I was actually in a depressed state and I didn't know it. And I didn't know what that looked like. And there's degrees of depression. So it wasn't like I'm just stuck in my house and life is over. And it was just, I wasn't me, but I'm still active. I'm still moving. I'm still doing things. But I just felt this off. And I would even tell my wife, my kids, my friends, my pastors, I'm like, I don't get it, man. I don't know what's going on. Well, that's what it was. It was like, this is supposed to be us. And instead of just me, I'm married for 35 years. I'm not used to just being me. The guy thing that I used to do when I was young, well, that hasn't been a thing for years. Yeah. And all the kids are older and they got their own thing going on. All my friends are working. So it's just like, I can't call up and go, hey, Tyler, man, let's go hiking. You're like, dude, I'm at work. What are you talking about? Leave me alone, Yeah. And so it was just this. So what is your purpose when you sell? Yeah. That's what I'm talking through with people is like, when you sell, what are you going to do afterwards? Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Arlon Graphics, trusted for innovative high-performance cast vinyls. Check out their newest product, DPF V9500, a non-PVC polyurethane wall film built to tackle ultra-textured surfaces like a pro. More exciting new products to come soon from Arlon. Check them all out at Wensco.com. Are you doing the math based on what we talked about in the last episode, which is like, hey, what do I need to survive, right? Like, what do I need to pay my house, pay off my car, eat food, pay my gas bill, right? Yeah. And I think if you're doing that type of retirement planning, where you're like, oh, here's the 4 things I need. I'm a couple $100 over that a month. We're good to go. Yep. And then you get bored at month 4 and you're like, well, there's no more money coming in. You know what I mean? Like I can't just decide I'm going to go vacation. I can only vacation maybe once a year right now with how much I brought.
Exactly.
And all that comes down to with, instead of taking the easiest way out, which says like, okay, my Social Security is going to be exactly what I need. I'm good. I'm going to retire. And taking the harder path, which is like, okay, let's do some planning over 3 to 5 years coming into retirement. And maybe instead of being like just slightly above comfortable, we can actually do what we want going into retirement, which I'd never even heard. All of that makes sense when you talk about the Social Security being based off of income, but I don't know how many people don't think about it when they're doing their business taxes, how that affects their own Social Security.
I never did. Yeah. I mean, but we're selling at 49 years old.
Yeah.
So I'm like, retirement's forever away. I have no idea how it works. It's kind of like when we parted ways, we left where we could obtain unemployment. Well, we had always been on the side of like, yeah, we had to let this person go, and here's all the documentation. We had to call up the unemployment office, go, how does this work from the end that we actually get a check from you, like, and so we had to learn that. Well, when we think about it, it's, on the back end. So we sell the business, and like you said, what do we need to live on? How long are we going to live? When are we selling? So if we're selling at 65, okay, well, you can start Social Security at that point. But I always think about like, okay, let's plan as if we aren't going to get Social Security. Let's plan in two different ways. Let me say that loosely. One way, we're going to plan to maximize Social Security, but let's act as if it's not going to be there, because we always hear every year like, oh gosh, they're going bankrupt. There's not going to be any Social Security. Is your generation going to be the one that doesn't get it? Is my generation? Is it our grandkids' generation? Like, what generation does Social Security stop? So let's just plan as if we don't have that. And if we do get it, okay, cool. That's travel money. It's toy money. That's whatever we want to classify it. So if that's the case, then we need 4 to 5% to be safe as an income off of our retirement. So if we can sell our business and we have savings and we have $1 million, can we live? Are we financially set in a position where we can live off of $40,000 or $50,000? And off of that 4 or 5% is going to come taxes. So you're not just going to pull off 4 or 5% unless you have all that $1 million in a Roth that you paid taxes ahead. You're going to still be taxed on some of that. So you got to figure out your tax bracket and go, okay, can I live, if it's 40 grand, can I live off of 32? If it's 50 grand, can I live off of 40? Well, if you're debt free and, everything's paid off 100%, cars, house, everything, and you live a very mediocre or, lifestyle, just simple lifestyle, you might be able to do that, and then if you get Social Security, cool. But if what happens if Social Security stops, just like our government shutdown, our son's in the military, he doesn't get a check for 2 months. Okay, what happens with Social Security? If your budget has that in it, what do you do? Do you have savings to cover that? Do you not have savings to cover? Or are you going to dip into your retirement funds? Okay, so now your retirement fund becomes lower. Let's say that happens for 12 months. Well, now you go from $1 million to $900,000. Oh crap! Now what? Now your plans got to adjust. Now you don't know where you're at. So that's where I think the whole thing is a strategy of, maximum value. What are you going to do afterwards with a purpose for you? What are you going to do from a Social Security standpoint? Where's your savings at to be able to truly retire if that's what you want? All that is one big package of thought process 3 to 5 years ahead of time.
Yeah. What do you think the financial difference is between somebody who does that prep work, let's say 3 to 5 years ahead of time, and somebody who says like, I'm 65 or retiring this year? What do you think that it can be dollar or percentage differences? I would just be curious.
It could be, you take a small company, $200,000 to $500,000 in gross sales, and maybe you get 50 grand, 100 grand. Okay. Well, that's still a $50,000 or $100,000 more than you had before. And most owners that I talk to are like me. My retirement was the business. Okay, well, if your retirement's the business and you're closing it and selling your assets for 10 grand, okay, where do you sit financially? I would have been screwed. I'd be at Walmart greeting, hi, how you doing? Until I'm 89 years old, I was not set in that position. And there's a lot of small business owners that think that way. So it's figuring that out, but it's figuring that out before you have to work the rest of your life.
Yeah.
When you sell, your goal is not to sell and have to go back to work for someone else. Your goal is to sell and do what you want. Now, for me, my purpose is, whenever we do stop, like if my wife and I truly stop and retire, I want to get 3 or 4 or 5 nonprofits and say, okay, guys, you have my wife and I for Monday through Wednesday, schedules whatever you want. And then Thursday through Sunday is my wife and I's personal time. Now we focus on our marriage. And then we also focus on giving back to someone, but we have a purpose and we agree with that purpose of each organization. Okay. It's not making money, but it has a purpose. And I think all of us are wired to have a purpose at all points and times in our life. It's not like we retire and we just don't do anything. Yeah. Those people that do that typically have a shorter life cycle.
Yes, for sure.
Once they stop, they retire, and it's like I said, it's fun for 6 months. Some people might make it a year, and then their life cycle starts going down because there's no purpose. Even being an employee at a business has a purpose, and that's just how we're wired.
Yeah. I think, there's two types of people I see in sign shops, especially the ones that are getting older. So there's the ones that will do this. They're both are the same. They're both going to do it till they die. There's two different people there. There's one who they love this, right? They're like, yeah, I have a whole team to run this, and I come here Monday through Wednesday. They keep telling me not to come in, but this is what I do. I just come here. I don't know why. And they might not even be getting paid, right? They might have already sold it off. They might have people run the whole thing, right? They're just like, I just come in. This is what I know to do. So I just do it. And there's the other one where it's like, I'm just here till I die, right? I haven't made enough money. I'm just going to work this thing until one day I'm sending an email and my body doesn't even hit the send button, right? I'm just here on the keyboard. And I always find that so sad that they've worked, a lot of times they've been running this business for decades at this point, and they're just feeling like there's not enough here. I haven't made enough money. I'm just going to run it. And I think it's only a slight restructuring, it feels like, and maybe a couple good years of push, and you can get out of the business and be done with it at least, and have something to go home and retire and not have to work if you don't want to. Yeah. If you want to keep working there, then you also have the financial freedom to be like, okay, well, it's here in Michigan. So, January through April, I'm just not going to be here. I don't know if you guys have been here, kind of cold. I'll come back in April. We can, I'll be here a couple days a week, whatever. But you have the freedom to do that versus the prison that is like you said, the 70-hour prison, which is I have to work. This is all I have to do until I die here at the keyboard.
And to me, they're hand in hand. So when we talked about the growth on the last episode, and we talk about exit and planning and strategy here, it's really both of them. If you set up during the growth period to not be needed, so you don't have to come in 1 hour a week, that's going to be the perfect scenario to sell. But once you get to that point, let's call this the point, well, then you get the decision if you want to hold on to it and reap the benefits of income. And so now it's on, and it's not on this line is not a static point. This line just means you're not needed anymore for your daily decisions. So you're not the hub of the spoke, and it's still growing from that point without you. Now you can go, okay, cool. Now if PE comes in and wants to do a roll up, you're positioned in a strategic position that you could be the first. You might get a 4, 5, 6 times multiplier, when really, if you put it on the market, it might be worth 3 or 4. Okay. But you're positioned to be there to make that decision. Isn't that ability to make that decision so much better than I'm selling on a fire sale? I'm selling on an emergency. I just got to get out, and I'm just taking pennies on the dollar.
Closing sale.
That's the way I look at it. It's okay. And all it is timing and strategy and thought process. Yeah. And like you said, it might just be a few tweaks. It might be a handful of tweaks. It's not overnight, so it doesn't have to be totally stressful. It can be as easy as you want to make it. It's just going back to our 1,000 minutes. What do we do intentionally with that 1,000 minutes and over a year?
What is you keep mentioning the multiplier, right? 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. What is that number based off? So when someone's going, if someone's running their business now, right, and they know what their total sales are, they know what their profit is at the end of the year. What does a sale look like based on those numbers typically?
Okay, so let's take my company as a scenario. So I was still the hub. I still held few positions. Without me, it doesn't grow. It doesn't keep moving forward. Well, then my multiplier might be if I'm profitable and I've got other areas, key areas. Like we're talking about processes, people, culture, and sales. Okay. Well, if I've got some of those, but I'm still dependent, my multiplier might be a 2x times your bottom line, whether it's EBITDA, net profit, whatever you want to call it. Now, if I have all those in order, it could be 3 to 4, depending on what size you're at, even 5 to 6, and once you're getting into, $10 million, $20 million, then your multiplier can go up. But there's a handful of factors, and so each one is independent. But if you take and don't go online and do AI and please don't do that.
ChatGPT doesn't know the answer.
No, and neither do all the forums on Facebook and LinkedIn, and everyone's an expert outside of here. No, truly get with a reputable broker. If it's not me, someone else, just reputable that understands, to be able to get some kind of evaluation. And typically you're going to pay for that evaluation, but they can give you at least a sense. You can have a 15-minute, half-hour conversation with them, and they can give you a sense of, okay, your business is really here, and there's different levels of business. There's mid-market and small mid-market, small business. And then there's Main Street, which is typically under $1 million is kind of Main Street, under $500,000 is a Main Street place. And that's typically your 2 to 5 person. They're not structured for an investor to come in, just park their money. It's an actual acquisition by a larger company or by someone who wants to buy a business, be involved, and grow it to the next level. So, yeah.
So you're mostly seeing, you keep kind of coming back to the 3. So I'm assuming that's relatively in the middle for what most people see. And that's based off of net profit most of the time then?
Net profit, structure. Still, it still comes down to the structure of the business.
Okay.
The more structured it is, where an investor doesn't have to be on a day-to-day, the more value there is.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just curious for people looking at it, because it feels like if you use that as a benchmark, right? You said okay, for most people, let's call it 3 times net profit, right? Then you at least have a goal that we talked about before, right? A goal of saying okay, if I want to exit this for let's say $1 million, that's what I think I need to get out of the business. Okay, well, I need to get, whatever that is, $333,000 a year in net profit to know that I can exit for roughly $1 million as long as I have all my process in place.
Yep. And as long as you're not the spoke.
Yeah.
That is a huge factor that because I want to be real careful when we say 3 times as an average. That's not the owner operator.
Yeah. That
is not the owner operator. The owner operator is going to be typically between 1 and maybe 2.5. On a great day, 2.5. So because you're selling a job.
Yeah.
You own the job per se, but you're selling a job.
Yeah.
That's not as attractive to a normal buyer as something that I can just go park my money. I can be the guy that, I come in because I want to an hour a day and they're telling me I don't need you here.
Yeah.
Okay. That is way more attractive to buyers.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we got to be careful on that.
Yeah. What do you, just 2 questions. Is that time, Rick, right? Is that how long we've been recording? I don't know what time you have. We started these episodes 2.5 hours ago now, and you've heard 30 minutes before this one. And now, according to this clock, we're 42, but we talked that whole time. So it's been a little bit confusing, but it's been helpful just to ask questions because I have at least a little bit of context here. But we talk about, so the multiplier gets higher, obviously the less the owner is involved, right? So what are some questions you would ask somebody to determine if they're oh no, I think I'm pretty hands off? Cause I feel like most people probably say that and then find out that they're not. So what are the questions the investors are going to ask to find out if it's actually a hands off business or if they just think it is?
Oh man, a true investor is going to ask a book of questions, but a very simple question you can ask yourself: if I leave for 6 months, and no contact, no cell phone, I'm in the middle of the Pacific Ocean doing a sailing cruise, no service at all, will the business grow, survive, and be profitable at the same rate as I am there today? So that is there's your simple question, and you have to answer that truthfully. If you say no, then you're not where you need to be to do your maximum value of a sale. So for me, I got lucky once again because I didn't do the planning that we're talking about. I was a typical owner operator. Boom, I'm 100 miles an hour. My wife loses her memory, 100% memory loss. So wake up one day, boom, she's gone. I'm at the hospital. I'm calling the guys. I won't be in until I figure her life out. And you guys are on your own. You guys have your processes. You know how to do things. And the business worked, and I was out for 3 months. Did it grow? Slightly. We didn't drop. Was it still profitable? Yes, because we had all of our processes in place. We had our people in place. So the only person missing was a little bit of sales and marketing. But we even had strategies for that built in place for me. So it moved on, it chugged along, and I was gone for 3 months. Now, can other businesses do that? Some yes, some no. Did I plan for that? Heck no. That was in no way planned. It was just, I just like we talked about during the break. I like to learn. I like to improve. I love self-improvement. Self-improvement carried on to the business. So how do we make our business better? I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a mentor. So I'm learning. I'm just doing what I'm learning. And so we built processes and everything in place to be able to do that. Was it perfect? No, not at all. But it was better than most.
Yeah.
So that's the key is if you can do that, then any kind of investor can come in and buy your business.
Yeah.
If you can't, then you're narrowing your pool.
I think we actually talked about this you talked about you were on the podcast with Behind the Signs that hasn't come out. Maybe by the time you hear this, it'll be out, right? But
yeah, Joe, no hints, but let's get this going.
Yeah. So he came on our podcast and I feel like this is one of the things we talked about with him was, sometimes the owners are actually just in the way. Like if you actually just took one step back, you would find out that actually this business, you think that you need to be, you think you need to be the one approving quotes. You think you need to be the one approving the artwork, but turns out like your team kind of does actually have it, right? Like they've been doing it long enough that if you just disappeared for, a few days, they would just continue to get the work done just like normal. And, it may be the opposite case, right? Or you stepped away and it's just a total disaster, right? That's a possibility too. But what I'm saying is you may find that you have processes, but you haven't written them out so you don't feel like they exist. But if you backed up and let your team do it, you'd find out that they just would continue doing it. And I think that's just in itself a useful exercise is can you just go on vacation and tell your team like, do not contact me. And I need to come back and everything just look like I just left. Like if I leave Friday, it's going to be like I come back on Monday. The whole week goes by, nothing changes. And you can start as simple as that, right? Like, can I take a vacation? Yes. Okay. Can I be gone for 2 weeks? What about 3 weeks? And if not, then what are the steps you need to put in place? And Joe talked about that too. And I think he's really good at that. His software helps you. So that's a good big plug for him too.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot of empowerment.
Yeah.
And as owners, we talked about this again during break. It's like, okay, well, I can do that better. They're not learning it fast enough. Yeah. Okay, we need to empower our people and then trust them. If we empowered them and we taught them. So if we have those processes actually in place, whether they're video, whether they're written, whether they're both, we had both, you can't write a process for how do you load a printer? How do you run the printer? How do you do the settings on the screen? How do you do Onyx? How do you do, so there's a lot of video and then there's a lot of written. So they could pull out the notebook. If we had a true written notebook, then we had a true online in Google Drive. Here's where you go to see the electronic one and you can update it along the way. So if you find that a process needs efficiencies, make a note. Let's talk about it at the next team meeting. And then if everyone's approved, boom, let's change that. Everyone had that edit capabilities and then video. So now you walk away and instead of them going, hey, okay, let's use me. Hey, Shawn, what's this question? What's the answer to this question? They had to now rely, I'm going on vacation for a week. Don't call my cell phone. I won't have service. Now they're going back and we're finding out, are those processes accurate? Do they need changed? Making those notes, empowering the people to make decisions that you can really afford as an owner to have them make.
Yeah.
But you might be scared to let them actually make it. That was me.
Yeah.
I had a lot of holding issues. Like I really should have empowered my people more. I trusted them, verbally trusted them. But if I really look back and if I empowered them, I would really trust them. And that's the factor, so the test is easy. Like you said, take a week's vacation, turn your cell phone off, don't call in. I was the guy that said, I'm not available. And then I called in. Okay.
How's it going?
Isn't that ass backwards?
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. Yes. I'm doing this test and I'm telling them and then I'm calling in. That defeated the whole purpose,
Yeah. And I'm sure they're thinking like, hey, don't contact me. And then you're calling in and they're thinking, well, maybe he doesn't trust me to do it. And if you do trust them, then they'll magically the work will just get done is what I always feel like. So that's interesting. The cool part too, with the technology that we have now too, is, it was actually, I heard Jay from General Formulations talk about this, where he was saying if you're trying to work on a process, right? Say you don't have them now and you're trying to actually formulate them now. It feels like a lot of work, but with the AI that we have now, you can literally just turn on the voice thing and say, hey, I'm trying to do a process for this. This is currently how I do it. Ask me whatever questions you need. And I mean, within a 15, 20, 30 minute conversation with a literal robot, you can have something that's like mostly functional, right? Where you can give it to your team, be like, hey, does this work? Like how we do quotes, how we approve artwork, how we reach out to clients, right? All of these things. Like, here's the process for it. Here's what I would like you to do. And you kind of have the technology to do it without spending, like you're talking like 15 minutes. You could do it genuinely in 15 minutes and make a process for pretty much anything that you have in your shop.
Yeah.
So in 2026, G2G and Wensco will launch 2 new products into the market. The one is the United Stick, which is a high efficiency, affordable, and reliable product for your sign and lighting projects. The second is LumaLink, which has a power pin design that's made to be cut and done anywhere in the field or in your shop. This is for small channel letters or any large projects. Check them out at Wensco.com. This episode is brought to you by Arlon Graphics, trusted for innovative high-performance cast vinyls. Check out their newest product, DPF V9500, a non-PVC polyurethane wall film built to tackle ultra-textured surfaces like a pro. More exciting new products to come soon from Arlon. Check them all out at Wensco.com.
Think about on the floor. So, if I'm loading a printer and then where does it go? Where's the next steps? Okay, I load the printer. I go back to my desk. Was my desk 5 steps away? Is my desk 25 steps away? Okay, how many times do you do that? 5 steps to 25 steps times 25 jobs a day. Okay, how much time can you save? And we look at it and we go, oh man, it's just a couple minutes. That effort's not worth it. Well, let's take 5 minutes times a week, 25 minutes times a month is 100 minutes times 50 weeks, it's 5,000 minutes. What's 5,000 minutes divided by 60? It's 40 some hours. Okay, now it starts adding up. Those small incremental changes are huge. It's kind of like, how do I become a millionaire? Well, you save a penny and you double it every day for 30 days. What? Oh, pennies, 2 pennies, 2 pennies, 4 pennies. You just keep doing that. You don't see it being big until you get to like day 20. I forget what it is, like 27. And all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, it's $1 million. Oh, and $1 million doubles to 2. And 2 doubles to, oh crap, we're at like 5 million in 30 days.
Yeah.
So how do you do those incremental changes? And you can carry your phone around, like you said, pop on the microphone. Okay, I do this step, I do this step, I do this step, I do this step. Then you take it into any LLM and you go, hey, convert this to a document in an editable Word document and give it back. Now you take that and you physically walk around with it, you and your team, and like, hey, oh no, we missed this step. We went down to, going back to the floor space kind of, anal. We went to, you walk in the morning, you open the door, you turn off the alarm, you hang up your coat, you turn on your computer, here's the password, here's where like all the way down to those steps, so that if I had a temp come in, here's our process. Yeah. And they could read through it and go, oh, okay, this is easy enough. Yeah. And if you want to take it one step further than we did, you videotape that and they can watch it. And so, you could have a temp person come in, say 15 minutes onboarding, watch the video, read the process, ask me any questions, get going.
We're on the printer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just posted a picture on LinkedIn yesterday, which was a joke, but it was my kids running the HP R530 flatbed here. They were sitting right by the control panel. And I was like, I keep telling you guys, anyone can run these things. But now, like, legitimately, you can give somebody like a 10-minute demo and it's so intuitive that it just makes sense. So if you have the process in place, there's not a lot in the print and signage world, right? Installation is its own thing, but on the print and prep and all of that work ahead of time, I don't think there's a lot that can't be explained on a 1-page document in a 5-minute video. That's like, here's how you run it. Yeah. Load the job, hit print, make sure the media's in right. You're good to go.
And of course, we're talking basics because, we got to levels where we're like, okay, we're hitting PMS colors and we're color matching. Okay, that takes a little different level. But if we're just talking about, hey, we're throwing together some signs and this and that. Yeah. I mean, if you have a good documented, whether it's, like I said, not verbal, but written or video, but, lamination. Okay. Yeah. It's got its own finesse. My wife used to do that. And during training, I tried it. Yeah. They told me, don't ever come down here again.
Rick's got some good videos of me running a laminator. They'll never show up anywhere. Yep. They're so bad. I'm like, look at how easy this is to run. It's all wrinkled. You're like, okay, I cut that out real quick. Let me put this back together real quick.
That was us. They were like, Shawn, come in here. You know, the guys there, I forget is it Call? KHL.
Cal.
Yeah. That's that was our last one we bought. And so, you know, the rep's in there training us and he's like,
probably
okay,
Frank.
Sean,
it's been the same guy for forever.
Yep.
So.
Frank, he's awesome. He's like, okay, Sean, come in here. And I'm like, no, you don't really want to do this. And he's like, you got to try it. You own the business. I'm like, okay. So I tried it. Yep. Wrinkles and this and I'm pissed off. I'm like, screw this. You all just do it and I'll just watch. I understand the process from watching. Yeah. Don't ever ask me to do it again.
Yeah. No, I know how that goes. Yeah. Well, the cool part too, like we were just talking about, there's a multiplier, right? That's based on net profit. So if you go through all those steps, right, that's 5 minutes saves you, whatever, 100, which saves you 40 hours, which is a work week in a year.
Yeah.
If you do that, and then in the process of trying to sell the business, if you save one work week of an employee, and then you're just going to multiply all of that by 3 when you go to sell the business. So it's like a on top, and it just keeps stacking wins basically.
Yeah. And going back to the small things equal incremental large things, it's like, okay, one little step for 5 minutes a week. How many of those can you create?
Yeah.
Just in 1 year, create 6 to 10 of those. Holy crap. That's all bottom line dollars.
Yeah.
That's all bottom line dollars that then become a multiplier.
Yeah. So
if you could take 40 times 10, 400 weeks, and let's say that's $50 an hour, or let's say $25 an hour. It's $425 an hour is probably 10 grand, I think. So 10 grand and you're at 3 times a multiplier, you just created $30,000 on your sales price. And in the meantime, you created 10 grand in your pocket.
Yeah.
All from a little bit of effort. I'm like, dude, this is, it's, I get really excited. I'm like the guy who can go see the empty space filled with graphics and what we do. And then I can go back and build a process for the production area. And I get jazzed by both of them, and I'm not even thinking dollars when I'm building the processes. It's just cool. Like it's a strategy thing, like how do you make this better? If I move this piece of equipment 90 degrees, I can save 16 steps. Okay. Cool. And it's in 16 steps per time you do that, whatever it is, that task. Yeah. So I get jazzed by both. I'm kind of weird.
That's so cool though. Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything to wrap up on. The last question I had, we already answered, which is like, what is the steps they should take if they're looking at retirement, which is kind of the same as growth. Like get your financials in order and plan, and ideally talk with someone who's done it or knows how to do it. Is probably beneficial. So
100%.
Yeah. So we did this on the last episode, but do you want to go where people can get a hold of you?
Yeah. Yep. You want me to do my cell phone again? Kind of like Gary Vee style?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So Shawn Borga, YourBizCoach, YourBizCoach.biz, and cell phone 765-479-1415. Text me anytime.
It's funny that you said that because Rick can probably attest to that. I've joked about giving out our employees' cell phone numbers on the podcast like a bunch of times. And so it's funny when someone actually did it now that it's cool. But no, thanks for coming on. This was another long conversation. So I'm glad we didn't do this in one episode. That would have been a long one. But thanks for driving up here. I'm glad it worked out. Glad we could get you on. And
thank you. I appreciate it.
Here. Yeah. And if you enjoyed this, you can reach out to him and hopefully get some more information. So thanks guys. We appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next episode. So goodbye.